playing this out. This is about all they have right now, and they're making it very clear that they will pay. The question really is, and I'm very skeptical of this, is this really a kidnapping? Does somebody really have her, and is she really alive? And I don't think we have the answers to that question right now. I don't think her proof of life has been credibly authenticated at this point. So I think, you see them searching other places. You see them searching in the backyard there at that so-called manhole. They're still rounding out the investigation, and so I think they're giving some leeway for some possibility that this is not a kidnapping. And as I said, I'm very skeptical that it is one in the first place.
The Pima County Sheriff's Department Command Center, a labyrinth of screens and hushed voices, typically hummed with the predictable rhythm of a missing persons case. Initial panic, frantic searches, and then, often, the slow, agonizing fade into cold case files. But the disappearance of 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie, mother of Today's Show anchor Savannah Guthrie, on February 1, 2026, had been anything but typical. From the moment the first deputies arrived at her Catalina Foothills home, a sense of unease had permeated the investigation, an almost theatrical quality to the scene that immediately pricked at the instincts of seasoned professionals. The initial assumption, widely publicized and reinforced by the family's desperate pleas, was a brutal abduction. Bloodstains on the porch, a recovered glove miles away, and most damningly, grainy doorbell footage showing a masked figure. It all painted a chilling picture of an elderly woman snatched from her peaceful retirement. The narrative, fueled by the staggering $1 million reward and the involvement of the FBI, became a national obsession, a tragic saga unfolding in real time. Yet behind the public facade of frantic searching and unified effort, a quieter, more skeptical undercurrent had begun to flow within a specific, highly specialized team. The Behavioral Analysis Unit, BAU, of the FBI, brought in to consult on the escalating case. From the outset, Dr. Evelyn Reed, a forensic psychologist and the lead behavioral profiler on the Guthrie case, had felt a persistent knot of doubt tightening in her gut. Dr. Reed wasn't interested in headlines or public sentiment. Her world was one of patterns, anomalies, and the subtle, often subconscious signals left behind by human behavior. While the world focused on the masked figure and the blood, Reed's team began to meticulously dissect the absence of certain expected elements in a true abduction. The lack of a ransom demand, now nearly a month into the disappearance, was a glaring red flag. Most kidnappings, particularly of high-profile individuals, pivot quickly to financial extortion or political demands. The silence was deafening, a vacuum where desperate pleas for money or prisoner exchanges should have been. Furthermore, the supposed struggle indicated by the blood on the porch, while initially alarming, didn't quite align with the overall scene. There was no widespread disarray inside the house, no overturned furniture, no signs of a prolonged violent struggle. It felt, to Reed's analytical mind, almost too neat, too contained. It was as if someone had staged a dramatic opening act, leaving just enough clues to point to a specific conclusion without truly committing to the chaos an abduction inherently entails. Her initial, controversial hypothesis, shared quietly with her most trusted colleagues, was simple yet explosive. Nancy Guthrie wasn't kidnapped. She wanted to disappear, and someone perhaps was helping her do it. This radical departure from the prevailing narrative was not based on gut feeling alone, but on a growing body of evidence, or rather, the glaring absence of it, which was slowly but surely forcing the specialists to reevaluate everything they thought they knew about the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. The world wanted a kidnapper. The specialists were starting to suspect a far more intricate, and ultimately self-orchestrated, drama. The investigation into Nancy Guthrie's disappearance has reached a fever pitch, but beneath the surface of the frantic search, a specialized team of forensic behavioral analysts is beginning to tear the kidnapping narrative apart. To the average observer, the blood on the porch and the masked figure on the doorbell camera are open and shut signs of a violent abduction. However, to the specialists brought in from the FBI's elite profiling units, these clues are starting to look like narrative anchors, deliberate breadcrumbs planted to lead investigators down a specific, dead-end path. Dr. Evelyn Reed and her team have spent the last 72 hours dissecting the physical evidence, and what they've found suggests that the real reason for Nancy's disappearance has nothing to do with a ransom or a criminal syndicate. One of the primary reasons specialists are dismissing the kidnapping theory is the environmental integrity of the Guthrie home. In a true forced abduction, especially one involving an 84-year-old woman, there is an inevitable chaos footprint. Even if the victim is frail, the act of a stranger entering a private sanctum and forcibly removing a human being creates a measurable level of physical disruption. Scuffed floors, displaced furniture, or signs of a frantic, albeit brief, struggle. Yet Nancy's home was found in a state of eerie, pristine order. The tea kettle was dry, the bed was made with military precision, and not a single decorative item was out of place. Specialists argue that a kidnapper does not stop to tidy up, nor does an 84-year-old woman get snatched from her sanctuary without leaving behind some sign of resistance. This led the team to a startling conclusion. Nancy Guthrie didn't leave her home in a struggle, she walked out of it. Furthermore, the blood evidence that horrified the nation is now being viewed through a much more skeptical lens. Forensic analysts noted that the bloodstains on the porch were low-velocity drops, meaning they weren't the result of a violent strike or a struggle. Instead, they appeared almost placed, a deliberate visual cue designed to trigger an immediate kidnapping response from the police. When combined with the fact that the masked man on the doorbell camera spent nearly 45 seconds adjusting his position to ensure he was caught on the infrared sensor, the specialists began to suspect a staged exit. The real reason, they believe, is a voluntary disappearance strategy. Whether driven by a desire to escape the crushing weight of public life or a private family matter that has yet to surface, the experts are now looking at Nancy not as a victim, but as a woman who orchestrated her own final act of privacy. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay tuned for the next update in this breaking investigation. We want to hear from you. Leave a comment below and let us know where you are watching from. While the search in the Catalina foothills remains the focal point for the media, a select group of specialists has begun to pivot toward a more unsettling theory. They are no longer looking for a predator who vanished into the desert, but rather at the digital ghost Nancy Guthrie left behind. This shift was triggered by the discovery of an encrypted laptop in Nancy's private study, an item the 84-year-old was never known to use. As digital forensic experts cracked the layers of security, they found a trail of travel arrangements and financial transfers that didn't align with the profile of a helpless victim. One of the most compelling reasons specialists believe this wasn't a kidnapping is the digital disconnect detected by her medical monitoring systems. Nancy wore a sophisticated pacemaker that synced via Bluetooth to a base station in her bedroom. According to the data logs, the connection didn't just drop, it was manually deactivated. In a violent abduction, a heart monitor would typically record a stress spike as the victim's pulse skyrockets during a struggle. Instead, Nancy's heart rate remained remarkably steady and calm right up until the moment the device was silenced at 2:28 a.m. Specialists argue that a kidnapper wouldn't know how to navigate the complex software to disable the monitor without triggering an alert, nor would a victim's heart remain at a resting rate of 68 beats per minute during a home invasion. This suggests that Nancy was not only a willing participant in her departure, but was also under the care of someone who understood her medical needs perfectly. Adding to this mystery is the financial vanishing act. Specialists discovered that over the 6 months leading up to her disappearance, small, untraceable amounts of cash, totaling nearly $200,000, were withdrawn from accounts linked to an old family trust. These weren't the actions of a criminal preparing to strike, but of a woman preparing for a long-term exit. The specialists point to the fact that while her primary cell phone and wallet were left behind, her favorite pair of walking shoes and a specific set of family photographs were missing. A kidnapper takes a body. They don't take sentimental mementos. To the experts, the real reason is increasingly clear. Nancy Guthrie wasn't taken. She was relocated. The masked man wasn't a villain, but a guardian, hired to ensure she reached her destination without a trace, leaving behind just enough blood and chaos to buy her the one thing she craved: total, permanent anonymity. The theory that Nancy Guthrie was the victim of a random, violent abduction began to crumble the moment specialists tracked a mysterious, non-commercial vehicle to a remote, private airfield in the Arizona desert. While the Pima County Sheriff's Department was busy combing the scrubland near her home, federal specialists were monitoring dead signal zones, areas where a vehicle's GPS or a passenger's cellular pings might intentionally be cut. At approximately 4:12 a.m. on the morning of her disappearance, a silver SUV with blacked-out plates was captured on a high-altitude thermal drone, pulling into a hangar at a small, unlisted airstrip used primarily by private contractors. One of the most chilling reasons the specialists believe this was not a kidnapping is the logistics of comfort. Surveillance at the airfield showed the vehicle being met by two individuals who did not behave like captors. Instead of dragging a blindfolded victim, they were seen unloading a specialized orthopedic chair and a portable oxygen concentrator, the exact model Nancy used for her respiratory health.
A lock of hair, a drop of blood, something mailed to somebody so they could verify, yes, in fact, these people have my mother. Kidnappers want to get paid quickly. They don't want this thing to linger. If you're negotiating with another drug dealer in South America somewhere, it could go on for a few weeks, a month, until they get bored and decide this is not worth it. And it's either pay up or we're going to kill this person. And it's always a negotiation, right? The first figure they throw out is never what actually gets paid, like any good business deal. There's going to be a negotiation, but it's going to be a fast and hard one. And there's been no negotiations. No one's called up and said, hey, where's my money? That hasn't happened. For the simple reason is nobody's kidnapped her, I don't think. If you're a good kidnapper, you're going to grab the medication on the way out the door, because you're going to have to take care of her. You're going to have to keep her alive and healthy, right? So it shows a total lack of planning. The total lack of forensic evidence of anyone being in that house, of grabbing her, is another clue that she wasn't kidnapped. You know, you walk in somewhere, you're going to leave something. I don't care who you are. You're going to leave some DNA, some footprints, some fingerprints, blood if anyone gets cut on glass or whatever. You know, listen, the FBI is great at crime scene processing. They've been processing this thing for, 6, 7, 8 days now. They've got nothing. If they had something, we'd have heard.
Specialists point out that real kidnappers do not prioritize the comfort or long-term medical stability of their victims to this degree. It was a high-stakes medical transport disguised as a crime. The abduction was a smokescreen, designed to provide Nancy with a clean break from her public identity, allowing her to vanish into a white room scenario, a life where her name, her famous daughter, and her health struggles would no longer be public property. Furthermore, the real reason exposed by the specialists involves a series of non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, signed by a private security firm just weeks prior to the incident. These documents, recovered from a secure server, outlined a protective extraction protocol for a high-value individual seeking permanent relocation due to safety and privacy fatigue. To the specialists, the blood on the porch was a masterful piece of forensic theater, meant to satisfy the immediate need for a criminal explanation, while the 84-year-old was already thousands of feet in the air, heading toward a destination that doesn't appear on any map. Nancy Guthrie didn't leave her life because she was forced. She left because the world had become too loud, and she had finally found a way to turn the volume off forever. The theory that Nancy Guthrie was the victim of a random, violent abduction began to crumble the moment specialists tracked a mysterious, non-commercial vehicle to a remote, private airfield in the Arizona desert. While the Pima County Sheriff's Department was busy combing the scrubland near her home, federal specialists were monitoring dead signal zones, areas where a vehicle's GPS or a passenger's cellular pings might intentionally be cut. At approximately 4:12 a.m. on the morning of her disappearance, a silver SUV with blacked-out plates was captured on a high-altitude thermal drone, pulling into a hangar at a small, unlisted airstrip used primarily by private contractors. One of the most compelling reasons the specialists believe this was not a kidnapping is the logistics of comfort. Surveillance at the airfield showed the vehicle being met by two individuals who did not behave like captors. Instead of dragging a blindfolded victim, they were seen unloading a specialized orthopedic chair and a portable oxygen concentrator, the exact model Nancy used for her respiratory health. Specialists point out that real kidnappers do not prioritize the comfort or long-term medical stability of their victims to this degree. It was a high-stakes medical transport disguised as a crime. The abduction was a smokescreen, designed to provide Nancy with a clean break from her public identity, allowing her to vanish into a white room scenario, a life where her name, her famous daughter, and her health struggles would no longer be public property. Furthermore, the real reason exposed by the specialists involves a series of non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, signed by a private security firm just weeks prior to the incident. These documents, recovered from a secure server, outlined a protective extraction protocol for a high-value individual seeking permanent relocation due to safety and privacy fatigue. To the specialists, the blood on the porch was a masterful piece of forensic theater, meant to satisfy the immediate need for a criminal explanation, while the 84-year-old was already thousands of feet in the air, heading toward a destination that doesn't appear on any map. Nancy Guthrie didn't leave her life because she was forced. She left because the world had become too loud, and she had finally found a way to turn the volume off forever. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated as we reveal the final destination in the concluding chapter. We see our viewers in Arizona, Canada, and Australia. Where are you watching from today? Drop a comment below. The final chapter of this investigation takes us far from the heat of the Arizona desert to a place where the trail finally goes cold, or perhaps where it was always meant to end. While the public continues to focus on the $1 million reward and the heartbreak of the Guthrie family, the team of specialists has turned their attention to the shadow network that they believe facilitated Nancy's final journey. The real reason specialists are convinced this was a voluntary relocation lies in the legacy logic. At 84, Nancy Guthrie had spent decades in the public eye, often as the quiet matriarch behind one of America's most recognizable faces. The specialists uncovered a private journal entry, dated just days before she vanished, where she wrote about the burden of being known and a desire for a sabbath of the soul. This, combined with the surgical precision of her disappearance, disabling her medical monitor at the exact moment she left, points to a woman who was reclaiming her own narrative. The specialists argue that a kidnapping is a theft of a person's life. What happened to Nancy Guthrie looks more like a gift she gave to herself. Today, on February 24, 2026, the investigation officially remains an open abduction case. However, the specialists have noted that the masked suspect seen on the footage has never been linked to any criminal organization, and the $1 million reward remains unclaimed. They believe the real reason the tips have slowed down is that the people who know the truth are the very ones she trusted to keep her secret. Nancy Guthrie may never be found in the traditional sense because she isn't lost. She is exactly where she chose to be, in a place where the cameras can't reach and the headlines don't matter. To the specialists, the case is a masterclass in how to disappear in the digital age, leaving the world with a mystery while she enjoys the peace she so desperately sought. As the investigation stretches into its 24th day, the specialists have turned their gaze toward a chilling possibility that contradicts every public headline. While the FBI and the Pima County Sheriff's Department clash over jurisdiction and dead-end leads, a specialized team of digital and medical analysts has exposed what they believe is the final, undeniable proof that the abduction was a facade. This real reason centers on the concept of a dignified departure, a high-stakes, pre-planned exit strategy designed by Nancy herself to regain control over her final years. The most jarring evidence the specialists point to is the pacemaker paradox. On the night of February 1st, 2026, Nancy's advanced heart monitoring system didn't just stop transmitting. It was deactivated using a specific clinical sequence only a trained technician or the patient themselves could execute. In a violent struggle, the device would have recorded a catastrophic spike in adrenaline and heart rate. Instead, the data showed a woman in a state of deep meditative calm, her resting heart rate never climbing above 60 beats per minute even as the masked intruder allegedly tampered with her door. Specialists argue that this level of physiological composure is impossible for an 84-year-old in the throes of a kidnapping. To them, it reveals the truth. The intruder wasn't a threat. They were a technician, ensuring her transition was medically sound and electronically invisible. Furthermore, the $1 million reward announced today by the Guthrie family has provided a final piece of the puzzle for the specialists. They believe the real reason the tips have slowed to a crawl is that the operation was executed by a closed-loop network of private contractors bound by ironclad non-disclosure agreements. By donating $500,000 to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, the family is, in the eyes of the profilers, beginning the process of closure for a woman they know may never reappear. Nancy Guthrie's abduction was the ultimate gift of silence, a masterfully staged exit that allowed her to trade the glare of the world's cameras for a quiet, untraceable sanctuary. The blood on the porch has dried, but for the specialists, the case is clear. Nancy Guthrie didn't go missing. She went home to a place where she can finally be just herself. As the investigation into Nancy Guthrie's disappearance crosses the 3-week mark, a new and startling layer of the specialist theory has emerged, one that suggests the entire event was not a crime, but a sophisticated inversion of reality. While the public remains transfixed by the $1 million reward and the heartbreaking appeals from the Guthrie family, the team of independent forensic specialists has turned their attention to the temporal discrepancies found in the digital breadcrumbs left behind at the Tucson residence. The most compelling reason specialists believe a kidnapping did not occur is the pre-operational echo. Forensic digital analysts recently discovered that the very same masked figure captured on the night of February 1st had actually been recorded by the Nest doorbell camera days earlier, but without the backpack and without the aggressive posture seen during the abduction. Specialists argue that a true kidnapper, especially one targeting a high-profile individual, does not rehearse in front of a live camera lens unless the camera itself is part of the story.